Okay, we're live now.
We are Brightside Theater.
Hey, home theater nerds. Welcome to the Brightside Home Theater Podcast. The Home Theater Podcast, it's all about the experiences, the sights,
the sounds,
the scenes.
Yeah.
Hey, Deej, do we tell them it's like take 4?
Yeah. Yeah. Things aren't going well today.
Oh.
Oh,
Where's the last
going.
post sounder, Deej, when we need it?
Yeah, exactly. This one. Kind of how I'm feeling right now, buddy.
Yeah, man, I get it. Oh, man. How are you?
I've been better. I'm not gonna lie. Can't lie on this one. Yeah, not a great day. As I almost canceled, almost had to, but I'm like can't. We're too close to 400. Working on the graphic though. I did work on the graphic for next week. A slight change to the 400, but yeah, I'm excited to get to 400 next week. But and it's always fun to sit down, cheer me up. But yeah, today's been a tough day for sure. Got a little bit of a bug yesterday, and things happen. Whatever.
Yeah, and just so the audience know, we won't be making any self-defecating jokes tonight.
No, it's no joke. No joke. Oh, not funny.
There's just this tinge of regret and wistfulness in your voice.
No, not at all.
It's no joke.
It's no joke. No, lots going on. Anyways, so how are you, Steve? Let's get to that.
Yeah, now I feel
the conversation.
Yeah, man. Now I feel bad because I am exhausted, but not because I've been unwell, but because work has been bananas. It has gone crazy. So it's one of those where I got home last night at about midnight, having left it, in the early afternoon, and then got back and just call after call after call during the night. And I was up again at 6 or whatever it was, and then worked all day. And so, yeah, I'm exhausted, but very excited because there is one in particular movie tonight that things have changed.
Yeah, Steve at in the chat. Yeah. DJ sounding less than bright-sided. It's like, yeah, a little bit. And then Paul, if it suddenly becomes the Steve show, we'll understand. It's like, no, I know you guys are awesome. I could have bailed, and I know you guys would have understood. But I didn't want to do that. And but yeah, because you guys, this means as much to me as it does to everybody else. So, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. And I know what Steve has in mind, and I can't wait to get to that because it's a little bit of I told you so, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, there's a lot of you told me so.
Okay, that made me feel better.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. No, dude, there is.
That's funny.
Yeah, talk about a 180. It's not so much a 180, it's a sort of 720.
You're spinning.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh. So man, I've been excited since Saturday when I got to see that thing. As soon as I saw it, I'm like,
I could see by a couple of your graphics I saw, you sent over. You just recently, right? You just sent them just moments ago. Yeah. I was like, because is that what you put on Twitter?
Yes.
Did you put because you said on X?
Developments.
Yeah. Oh, good for you.
There's some interesting responses that I want to talk about, and that touch on something James Cameron talked about earlier today as well. And and there's a discussion going on in the chat about theaters, and there's some discussion about that as well in terms of is home cinema better than commercial cinema? And so there's all of this ties together when we get
Oh
to
my
it.
God, I can't wait to get
yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
yeah. This is what I said when Paul says, "Oh, if it becomes a Steve show, we'll understand." Guys, I could do 2 hours on this one movie as a
I
result of
know.
what's happened since Saturday.
All right. I wish you'd said that. I would have watched that one movie instead of watching something else, and then we could have. I mean, I've
Oh,
already
man.
seen it, but
You
Nathan in the chat I love this. I love seeing this stuff. I love when people tell us, "Oh, I bought that movie because of you guys and stuff." But Nathan saying in the chat, "This show makes me actually consume media instead of just dreaming of my next equipment upgrade," which is thanks, Nathan. That's awesome because that's exactly why I founded the show. Right. And it's like when I started that's where bright side comes from. It's not only is it the bright side, like positive, but it's this side of the screen, not the gear, not behind the screen. Right. Like on the other side, well, in me in particular, my gear is literally behind the screen. But it's like, enjoy this is what we get all that equipment for, so that we can sit down here and talk about the movies. Because if it isn't for the content, I mean, it's just blinking and blue lights. Well, if you're lucky enough to have blue, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's otherwise there's no sounds, there's no picture. You need the content, and that's what we talk about. And I love it. And it's great when the listeners actually comment on it. I'm like, that's why. I'm like, you get it. You get me.
But I'm the ultimate example of that, Deej. As much as I was a listener, the reason I'm on it is because you were talking about the stuff that got me really excited in the first place and wanted to interact with you about it. That too. And so it was that kind of drew me to it inexorably towards it. And then I find and you'll notice. I mean, I'm sure people did. With Brett when he's on. When you guys get excited about the tech and the technology, I can't keep up with that because you guys are much more into it than I am. But then watch my eyes light up when we start talking about the movies and the experiences, and it's kind of like, So it's kind of what I'm here for too.
It's exactly. But the thing is what we want out of the tech, it's kind of all encompassing. You can't have one without the other, right? It's not like we can sit here and ignore the tech and say it's just about the movies, because the tech is what brings the movies out, right?
Yeah.
So overall, like, how many times have we said, I don't think I've ever experienced this movie this way before, because we didn't have the tech. Right. And who knows where the tech's going to go in the future and what we're going to be able to see. Like when we talked about Casablanca, or we talk about Psycho, or Lawrence of Arabia, all of these classics that when we talked about those movies, we talked about like, nobody has seen it like this. Nobody experienced it like this, because even in your best cinema, like back then, they didn't have the capability of this. Right, of what we experienced. And like, even going to Psycho, we're like, well, John, our inside man, he might be like, well, there was some nice ones back then, not with the surround sound we have now. And that's it. Psycho, I believe, is in DTSX.
Yeah, it is.
If I remember right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it is.
So Psycho's in DTSX, and it fits. It's not overdone. It's not like, you're not like, oh, that's wrong. It's not the way it should be heard. It was done so well. And then the picture, the quality that you got, nothing could compare to that even back then, to what we're experiencing now. So that is the tech. And I am looking forward to the next iteration of tech that we get that makes it, bring. What do we say when we get a new piece of tech? Oh, I can't wait to go through my catalog again and watch all my movies over again, right? And that's why we've seen these movies millions of times. So it is like Nathan's saying in the chat right now, it's a symbiotic relationship. Yeah, it is, because you can't have one without the other. And it's why we do what we do, So getting all fired up.
But quite. There's no question about it. Look, these movies get me excited, and because of the delivery system, more about which later, it drags you into it, and you enjoy it all the more, of course. But anyway, should we say hi to those in the chat?
Yes,
we've already brought a couple of them up. Let's do that. Let's go back up to the top now. Mark V was in earlier.
I saw that 6:48 a.m.
Yeah, he was
I
in
saw
early
that.
now. They're already
Hello?
looking at. Yeah,
Here's Mark V at 6:48 a.m.
but then Captain AC3 says, because I said, "Oh, your first Mark unless it resets," and then Captain says it's already reset at least once, so you should be cool in the gang.
And
Anyway,
does Captain AC3 know what should be cool in the gang is a reference from?
I'm not sure I know what that's a reference from.
Oh, come on. It's all cool
Don't
in
lay
the
it on
gang.
me. Cool in the gang.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
oh yeah,
He said,
yeah, okay. Yeah,
it was he was saying it in Pulp Fiction, and he was, because instead of just saying, "You're cool, man," he's like, "You're cool in the gang." Yeah, that was Pulp
Is
Fiction.
that Eric Stoltz? Was that
No, I don't think it was Stoltz. I think it was Samuel Jackson. Say it's all cool in the gang.
Okay.
I think, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But it's Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
that's where I quote it from when I say it.
well,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Cool
Okay.
in the
Well, there you
gang.
go. Look, education. See, yeah,
Steve.
that's also
Steve.
what we come here for.
Steve, would you give me a foot massage?
Well, obviously, yes, that I do know. What do they call a cheeseburger in France? A quarter pounder in France.
Yeah.
Actually, Dom can help us with that. Dom, is it a Royale with cheese?
Yeah, it's a Royale.
I don't think
with
it
cheese.
is. I
No,
don't.
it might
I'm
not
not
be
sure.
now. They probably
I don't
changed
think it ever
because of the
was.
movie.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
I think he got it wrong. Yeah, Dom, you can help us with that. I'm not sure it was ever called that. I think it was just for the movie. I read somewhere.
But do you remember why it's not called a quarter pounder?
Because it's they got the metric system
The
out
metric
there. They don't know what the.
They don't know what the F a quarter pounder is. I love that. I love that. I love the foot massage conversation too. So he goes, "Would you give me a foot massage?" F you. All right, let's get into rolls.
Yeah, I got my technique down and everything.
I got.
I don't be tickling or nothing.
So great.
It's
So
good. Right.
great.
Anyway, back to the chat. So Captain's there. Steve Hat's in as well. Nathan Reed, obviously, we've heard from Nathan already. TSG Spartan's in. Again, as I said, I think a local boy to me. Van Gool is in. Marcus Beebe is here. Hi, Marcus. Paul's in. Obs. There's Dom again, so we'll have to see what Dom has to say in a minute, because if I go through too far through, we'll miss who it is. There's some shirker who's claiming he's ill from Brightside Home Theatre. I'm not sure who that is. Anyway,
what? What?
Yeah, there's someone who says, coming not so hot today. It's like Brightside Home Theatre.
Yeah. Not so hot today.
Yeah, sick note. Right.
Yeah.
We've got Jordan in. Hiya, Jordan. He and I have been DMing off and on quite a bit today about various things. Fred's in. Hey, Fred. And we've got who else came in? Someone else dropped in as well that I saw. And Dom noticed my Nostromo t-shirt, obviously because Romulus is out on Friday. Not that I'll get to see it till Saturday, damn it, because I'm on call, but still, never mind. I'll be there early Saturday. VJ's in, Nelson's in. Hey, Nelson. Nice to see you in the
chat. What's up, Nelson? How you doing, buddy?
Yeah. And that's all she wrote, I think, at the moment, but it's a spirited discussions going on in the chat.
Yeah, a lot of Pulp Fiction quotes that this is a tasty burger. The Royale with cheese. And then Captain AC3 says, "Yep, Sam in Pulp Fiction." So, yeah.
Oh, there's Dom. Yep. Right. So Dom says Royale. All right. Okay. Royale cheese. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So
Royale cheese.
Quentin Tarantino was right then. Okay.
Yep.
There we go. I don't know.
Yeah. There you go.
And then, but Dom says no longer exists, though. He thinks. Okay. Oh, well, fair enough.
Why? They got rid of McDonald's or the cheese?
It's illegal.
I can't have cheese anymore, unfortunately. I got some kind of allergy to dairy. It's not helping me either. And it's so good. But that's another tangent.
Yeah. So Paul says royal cheese. So it's kind of true. It's great to know. Yeah. I have not. Yeah. I must admit I haven't tested it. When I was in France, I'd forgotten all about that. Otherwise, I would have checked. But there we go.
Oh, I definitely would. If I ever end up in France, I definitely would. Just from the movie alone. There was something else that he quoted too that he said. I can't remember. But yeah, so let's the burger, Dom, the burger. That's what it's called, the burger. Jeez, the chat's going crazy on like, what is a quarter pounder in grams?
Well, look, we've been into cars. There's no reason why we can't do cooking as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I did this weekend. I got a crash course in it. That's what I was doing. Yeah. Well, a little bit of it. I did a very little bit of it. I was helping my friends with their catering for a golf tournament. And here it is. This is the ice sculpture from it. And those are oysters on top, not charcoal, right, Steve?
It's my screen. I couldn't. Just how it looked.
This is, and actually in this picture here, you could see, maybe not
shrimp.
on YouTube, but there's a
There's a
few
shrimp.
shrimp down at the bottom you could see. Okay.
Uh-huh.
But, that was my donut that night. Whoops. Went too far. That was my dinner when I got home. But yeah, you can see the shrimp at the bottom there. So that was the ice sculpture for that. And 300 oysters had to be shucked. And guess who got to do that? Me and 2 other guys.
I'll tell you what, Deej,
300
that must have been
oysters.
a shocking nuisance.
We go. It was a shocking nuisance, let me tell you. But it was awesome. Mindless, like I said last week, mindless. All I had to do is what I was told. So it was nice. Just worked, like I was telling you, like almost 20-hour days and just 4 hours off, back in at it. And it was fun to see my friends at work too, like what they do for a living and how hard they work and everything behind the scenes, and just do my job. And it was like, I got burns to prove it and everything. I burned myself in the oven and got to eat some oysters, got to eat some, it was great. It was awesome. I had so much fun. And it is exhausting, but I love like endurance races. I'd love to just push myself. Right. And like, when you do an endurance race or a triathlon or any of these things with long-term and run yourself ragged, we call it in cycling, bonking, where you literally have nothing left in you until you get fuel in you. What do you like? It's not that, Steve.
It means something else over here.
Yeah, I bet it does. But it's called that. Oh, I've done
just before the chat
times.
Goes crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I've done. I won't say it again then. But when you get that low and you get food in you, it's like you could feel your energy level just go whoop. It's awesome. It's like watching. I've been so low. Like I did the first 100-mile bike ride I ever did. I got lost. And what I was doing is you can't carry enough stuff on you. So what I did is I brought my wallet, like money, and this was back before you had like cell phones. I had a cell phone, but not like what we have now. This was in like the late 90s. And I brought my wallet or money and a water bottle, 2 water bottles, and that's it. So every 2 hours, I would stop, eat a Snickers bar, a Gatorade, and fill up my bottles. And I got lost at like mile 60. I was supposed to be. So it took me an extra 40 minutes to find a store because I got lost up in, 50 miles from my house. So once I'm past that 2 hours, now my energy starts going down. I need energy. You've got nothing left. And that's what it's called, that word. I won't say it again. And you get delirious, you get dizzy, but you're on a bike and you're in traffic. And I'm like, oh no. And then I found the main road, which here is Route 16, which is kind of a fairly busy road. And I found that and I'm like, okay, great. Good news is I'm about to find a store somewhere. Bad news is if I start to fade and pass out into traffic, I could get killed. So I'm like pedaling and and this is the first time I did that word. I'd never done this before. I was kind of excited to feel it, but at the same time, I'm like, I wanted to survive it. I get to the store and I walk in, which is kind of funny in itself. And it's like Ralph Potts knows this. And, Tom Andrew, everybody knows this. It's like when you're in cycling gear, it's all cool when you're on the bike, all cool in the gang. But the further away you get from the bike, the worse you look. And here I come clunking into the store. And it's like, I didn't have my helmet on, but I'm in all spandex and cycling shoes. You're like, ding, 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 ding. So but you don't care at that point. So I get into the store, I get my Gatorade, get my Snickers bar, and you eat this. And you take your 10-minute break. That's what I was doing. You eat this, drink the Gatorade, and you literally feel like the gas gauge on your car. You feel your energy go up. You get back on the bike and you're like, yeah, you can't wait for the next. I mean, you just go. It's like a runner's high or whatever you want to call it. But and I've had it happen to me a few times since then. I've had it happen to me fighting, rolling, MMA. And doing that, and you just keep going with guys, and then you just like, but you want to fight under those conditions because then when you're not under those conditions, you're better. You know that. So, but I love that feeling, and that's what it was like this weekend as catering. working like these people work. And that's why, like, when I go out to eat, I always tip high. I know how hard these people work. They work crazy hours, ridiculous hours. And then, but we go in and we're like, blah, blah, you know, you're having dinner and you get to go home. They're there opening it, closing it, doing all this stuff. And it's like, I've been spoken to at my friend's restaurant by one of their managers. She's like, don't tip so much. I go, you don't get it. She goes, if they don't deserve it, you don't tip it. I go, you're doing it wrong. And I'll tell this to anybody, tip high. Because especially if it's a place that you frequent all the time, because they will notice it and they will appreciate it. And everybody thinks it's the other way around. You tip for good service, you tip for appreciation, and then you'll get even better service when you show up there again. So, and anybody that's been behind a bar or worked, you know, like I'll go into a bar in a place I've never been before, and I'll stand there. If it's busy and you hold out a 20 and you tip the bartender 20 or whatever you want to tip them at the start and be like, yeah, here you go. And they're like, what's this? Yeah, just thanks for being you, right? The rest of the night, there'll be a crowd at the bar, and they'll look back and go, what do you need? You jump right to the head of the line, even though you're at the back of it, because they appreciate it, and you appreciate them. You pay it forward. You don't pay it afterwards, because everybody has a bad day, and you don't tip on that. Now, if somebody's a dink, and you've seen it over and over, all right, that's different. But I always pay ahead, and this is why, because I've done this before, too, so I know what it's like.
So we've gone from Pulp Fiction to Reservoir Dogs.
Pretty much. Exactly. Yeah, that conversation. Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Now, here's something I only found out relatively recently, my last trip to the US. So waitress, I know it's tangent, but I'm just fascinated by it because it's part of a political conversation going on at the moment as well, which we won't go into. But I did not know that service industry staff in the US get taxed on their anticipated tips.
Oh yeah.
So how the hell does that work? I couldn't believe that when I got told it. I didn't believe it. And then because how do you do that?
Well, it hasn't always been that way, but they basically came up with that because most of the tips are cash and people tip cash. So the government was like basically, whoa. We know you're getting it. We know you're not claiming it. And there's no way to positively track it. So we're going to say, here's what we're doing. And we're going to tax you regardless. You know, even that, it's still not, you know, depending on what it is. There's so many ways and I get it from both sides, right? I get the government's like, look, you're supposed to be claiming what you get paid. But at the same time, if you're getting cash and you can't track it, what are you going to do? So you're going to claim part of it, that's the game. And like I said, I get it on both sides. So when they came out with that, I remember, well, okay, they're not wrong. It's like everybody knows, you know, and it's like, that's why, like, if you tip somebody, you're like, they don't have to keep, you know, they can just take it and put it in their pocket. They can do what they want. It's just like you and I, Steve, would be like, hey, thanks for doing everything you do. Here's $20, whatever. Not that but are you going to go to the government? I got $20 from DJ.
Well, but say you don't do that. And then the government are like, well, you could have done. We think you should have done. Therefore, we're going to tax you on that, which you didn't earn. I mean, over here in the UK, you have what's called pay as you earn, PAYE, it's called. And that means that it's deducted at source. So before you get your pay, it's deducted from your employer. And then you get what's left, or as a percentage is taken
and
out.
That's the way it is for most people over here, too.
Okay, yeah. But the idea that the government would tax you, I guess it's not a political, I'm just fascinated.
Yeah.
It is the idea that the government would tax you on earnings that you might not earn. Because if they have a slow night, or I don't know, you have a bad day and someone gets sick, don't take it personally, Deej. Someone gets sick, and then it turns out that that gets into the paper, so no one goes to the restaurant for 2 weeks. But it's based on your hours too. It's not like it could just tax you and you didn't work that week. But if it's a slow week or it's this, it'll be reflected in your hours as well. And it kind of works out. And they don't tax you. It's not as accurate as you think it would be. It's extra that you would never have been taxed before under the old rules. But it's not like it's like, all right, they're slamming it. It's because people get tipped quite well. You know, people make decent money at tips. And I don't know what the rate is right now. But they also, if you're working a tip job, like when I was a driver, I've never waited tables.
but I was a
Mhm.
driver for a restaurant. And when you work with tips, you don't have to pay minimum wage. At least you didn't
Mm.
then. I don't think you do now. So they don't even, and that's the other thing. You're not even getting minimum wage, so they're not able to tax you on that. So you're making
Mm.
less hourly. So that is documented. So the government's making less there. And
Mm.
then you're getting compensated on the other side. So I'd be willing to bet, just guessing on this, home theater podcast here. I'm
Oh,
just guessing that they would be taxing you on up to minimum wage. Does that sound reasonable? You know what I mean? Does that sound like an
yeah.
educated guess?
Yeah, well, knowing what little I know about it, I'm just trying to kind of get my head around this idea. I mean, I get that you get taxed on what you've earned. That's fine. I mean, obviously, that's just how it works. But taxing you on anticipated income, when by definition that income is haphazard and uncertain, just
Yeah.
seems kind of alien to me. And I've that kind of. I mean, I'm not going to say libertarian part of me because that seems weird, but that kind of
Yeah.
that justice part of me is irked by that, is tweaked by that. This idea that somehow I might not earn that money, but you're going to take a slice of something I didn't earn. And that just feels really alien to me. So,
Yeah.
but and it blew my mind when I got told it. Like I said, I didn't believe it, but there is talk about getting rid of that, as I understand it. So yeah, fascinating. And I mean, it
Isn't
may
it?
be that it's like that all around the world, and it's just not like
Yeah.
it here because we don't have a tipping culture here. It's not. There's
Really?
never yeah. You don't have a. It's not expected here like it is in the US, and a lot of British tourists get into trouble because they go over to the US, don't realize it, don't leave a tip, and then of course there's a problem. It happened to my brother, who can be frugal with his money on occasions,
Yeah,
and
there's nothing wrong with that.
he didn't really realize it. So he goes to a restaurant and he paid what was owed, and he walked out. And as he walked out, the waitress went after him and just said, "Sorry, did we upset you? Have we done something wrong?
Yeah.
You didn't tip," and it kind of freaked him out. So yeah, I'm fascinated by it because it's one of those cultural differences and significant cultural differences between the US and the UK. It doesn't mean no one tips here, but it's not expected, and it's not something that is de rigueur. It's not
Yeah.
kind of all the time. It is very much a exceptional service you would tip rather
Right.
than
And
service.
I don't believe in that. I don't
Yeah,
believe in
quite.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
believe
indeed.
the other
Yeah.
way. And to be fair, there's a lot of people over here, and I know from the restaurant industry, and I pretty much grew up in it from like a guy that's like my neighbor who's like my brother practically. I can't even say he was like my best friend. He's 3 years older than me. He taught me so much anyways, but his family owned a restaurant. And I'd spent a lot of time in the restaurant just hanging out, and everything I knew and learned was through him anyways.
Mm.
But seeing how people tip, and then being in the restaurant industry at certain times in my life and seeing how people tip, and some people do think that way even over here. They're like, no, that wasn't very good, so I'm not tipping. And it's like, people don't understand that they're not, the wait staff over here, they're not paid the same. They're not getting minimum, right? They're not doing this. And it's like, they do depend on it, and that's why they try to do a good job. And it's like, these people, they're not doing bad on purpose. They're doing the best they can, and it is a very, very hard industry to just do a day in and day out. Never mind like my friends that own the place, and they're 20, and it's hard work to own these places. And I was actually my buddy, like I said, I called him my brother. He's in between jobs. I was trying to get him into my friend's place, and we had a conversation the other day, and it's like, he's actually going to my other friend's restaurant, and he's going to manage that one. And he said, give me a couple months, get them running right, and then I'll help you out down there and maybe do some consulting. But it's so hard, and because it's such a hard industry to do. It's taxing on the body, the mind, everything. And then you get people going, yeah, you weren't very good. Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Well, so Paul says, very reasonable reaction from the waitresses. I'm assuming he means from my brother. And in New York City, you'd be leaving the bar in a hail of bottles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And people do it here. People do it here all the time. Yeah, it's sad.
I've got a fairly unique perspective on it as well. I mean, I think I've said before, but obviously I grew up in Spain, and in the summer months, my parents used to do catering, and so they would cater for the Spanish fiestas. In the summer, every little village, every town has its own fiesta. It's a weekend of celebrations, and in Spain, everything goes 24 hours and 24/7, because they traditionally eat very late because of the heat. And so my parents would start work in these catering vans. You imagine the heat in August when it's 46, 47 degrees Celsius. And they'd start at 7 o'clock at night and would work through and still be working at lunchtime the next day, and then do a 2-hour drive home, and then a 2-hour drive back that evening and start again. And they would do that every single weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday into the Monday, throughout the summer. And I mean, and that was horrendously hot, hard, long hours, dealing with very, very pleasant but very drunk Spaniards. So there was never any trouble ever, but boy, could they be drunk.
Oh yeah.
And so, they'd be at 4 o'clock in the morning, they'd be singing Viva España on, into the hatch of the van, having a great time. But my poor parents were just, and I used to wait because they had tables at the side of these vans.
Yeah.
And I used to wait those and, used to help with that. And I mean, that, I get it.
Yeah.
It's really tough work. There's no doubt about it. But always, it's character building is what I would say.
Yeah.
And for a 15, 16-year-old lad, as I was at that time or thereabouts, I mean, see your parents work like that is just, it's crazy. But there we go.
Yeah. Watch it. Like I said, watching my friends, just to give you an idea what they did this weekend. It's like, so they had this invitational golf outing that meant breakfast, lunch, and dinner on starting Thursday night. They served dinner. And then Friday and Saturday was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And each one, like, I think Friday morning was 2 different breakfasts, 60 each one, right? And then had a setup, takedown, boom. And then lunch was for 60 each one. And then maybe 120 on Saturday. You had all 120. And then Saturday night was like the formal dinner, which was all the golfers, 120 plus their plus ones. So 240. Setup, takedown, cook for all of that. Each meal had to be cooked by one person, my friend. And she's in the kitchen cooking the entire time, right? So we're doing all of that. On top of that, they catered 2 different events outside of there. And we had to make the sandwiches for all that. 200. We had something at one point. She goes, "How many things do we have of trays of sandwiches?" And I was like, I made 4 of the flavors, 4 of the kinds, and those were at 30 a piece, but they had to be 150 sandwiches each. The other ones were 200 sandwiches each for this one event. So we had something like 40 trays of sandwiches going out, and we had to fit them into a vehicle, and but store them in the oh my God, it was crazy. All of this stuff nonstop. And like I said, and my friend who's cooking the entire time, she's like, the last 2 days, she's like, her back hurts. I'm like, yeah, you've been doing this for friggin' 4 days straight.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it. And watching her, and then I ended up cooking, and my wife's like, I didn't know you could cook like that. I didn't cook. Did what I was told. Stir. Okay. Don't burn yourself on this. Don't do this. That's
and you still did that.
Yeah, exactly. That's hot right there. Do this, do that. Oh my God. It's crazy. But it was a blast. It was a blast, and it gave me a whole new appreciation for everything they do behind the scenes, which I kind of already knew, but because I've been there before. But then when you see your friends actually doing it, you're just like, it's like,
it's
it's
definitely
awesome.
character building. Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, all right. And I look forward to doing it again someday. Absolutely. I would do it all over again. I love pushing myself like that, and I love watching them. So can't go wrong.
You say it like you like pushing yourself, like we don't know you did a 24-hour, 25, 26-hour podcast each.
That's nothing
we were
compared
there
to what we did this weekend. That's nothing. I get that. Because you sit here and it's like what my other friend, so 2 of my friends, I keep saying my friend. All right, my friend Larissa, she was the one that was cooking, and my friend Becky, they're the 2 owners. Becky's she's running around, she's managing, she's doing all this and making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? And she's waiting, she's doing this. Larissa's cooking the entire time, managing. We need this food here, this food there, blah, 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 right? I think it was Saturday morning. I was like, oh my God, my legs were, Friday night, my legs started cramping up, and I'm at my refrigerator with a bottle of mustard, squeezing it into my mouth because if you start to cramp and you eat mustard, it's one of the tricks. It'll go away like that. And I told Becky that, or I told the two of them that when we were walking in at 4 o'clock in the morning. Right. And Becky's like, oh my God, my legs did the same thing. I go, get yourself a bottle of French's mustard and she goes, I'm keeping it by the bed. And I was like, I used to do it when I was training because if you're too dehydrated, it gets the minerals back into you. Bright side home cooking. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't home cooking, but it was cooking.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fred 215, cooking by the book. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so and I texted my wife that morning. I was like, do me a huge favor. Go buy a new bottle of mustard for me for tonight because I was standing there and you know when you only have a little left and you're trying to get it out and it's going I'm like, oh God, so good.
Oh man.
Yeah,
No,
Paul.
well,
Yeah, we need John back in his pasta recommendations.
Oh, he was back on Twitter this weekend with a new recipe. We haven't seen it for a while. So yeah, he's back.
Cool.
Easing back into it.
So but that was my weekend. I got a few movies in, but wasn't able to get to actually I'll tell you right now, I wasn't able to do my RoboCop comparison because I watched RoboCop on Kaleidoscape, but the disc came in while I was I think it came in Thursday afternoon, and I've been pretty much straight out ever since. So wasn't able to get to it. To the disc version, but I'll have that for next week. So but you ready? Anyways, all about the tips, all about that. Pay it forward. That's what I do. Patreon, do what you want to do. You want to support us? No, you do. We're here anyways, just like the wait staff. They'll be there every day. So we appreciate it. That is
and a minimum of 15%. Is that what we're saying, Deej, for our Patreon?
15% of what their bill. We haven't charged them.
Well, we can fix that.
Yeah, exactly. We could charge you.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to get to some good stuff? What we're here for?
Oh, yes.
Are you? You ready? You see the one I got queued up for you there, buddy?
Yep. It's been
all right.
Yeah. Long time coming, this one.
Yeah, it is. Let's hit it.
Okie dokie. So this is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes on Disney Plus. Not out on 4K disc yet, although I think it's 9th of September, something like that. It hits the 4K disc. So apologies, by the way, for the terrible picture. This one I kind of grabbed from my iPad. I saw it in the cinema room. Let me make that clear. But I
think it's one of your better
really
ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it looks great. It looks
okay,
great.
Well, I had to crop it and because obviously the iPad screen's weird, so I had to do all that. Anyway, so yes, and I did finish it, no matter what it says there, about 120 remaining. It's because I went back and watched some bits again.
Yeah, we're questioning you, Steve. We're questioning your
authenticity. Hey, I just absolutely nothing but honesty.
Yeah, exactly.
So now we've talked about this before a while back when I saw it in the theaters, and I loved the movie in theaters and really enjoyed it and was looking forward to getting it at home. But that excitement was tempered because Shane Lee of this here podcast, when he was on, had said how disappointed he was.
Spare change, to be fair. Let's give him the credit.
That's fine. Obviously, nearly as good as ours. And
I don't think so.
No,
I think it's the other way around. It's like we'd be lucky to be half as good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, yeah, he's great. So he had mentioned though that the Kaleidoscape version of it that he had seen was not good, that the Atmos on it was very flat, and he loved the movie in theaters as well. So that tempered my excitement somewhat because I was really looking forward to getting this at home. So I, as soon as it came out, Disney Plus, day one, got myself into the theater room and thought, right, here we go. And I thought I'll probably watch the first 20 minutes because I just want to kind of get some idea as to whether the home version's any good. Should I just wait for the disc and watch the whole thing? And had to rearrange my entire date because I had watched it all. Still just as good. And I know, Deej, this is completely alien to you because you haven't seen the other three.
Yeah, I know. I keep wanting to see it because it's queued up. And I'm like, I gotta watch
missing it.
I know.
Yeah, you really are missing. I mean, you don't have to have seen the other three to watch this and appreciate it.
I still want to,
but you'll get more. Yeah, you will get more. I mean, when they talk about Caesar and all the rest of it, you know, that's what they're referring to. And there are visual motifs that recur in this from the other three. So you should see them. I mean, if they weren't great movies, it will be fine, but they are, so it's well worth it.
Yeah.
So really enjoyed it second time round. It's a really clever, well told story, with some proper darkness in this, and this is a new trilogy. It's definitely going to be a trilogy because it did very well in theaters, and there's some seriously dark path down which this is heading, and it's fascinating. I really, really enjoyed it. This movie's great and one of my favorites of the year. So now, in terms of the home theater experience, the video, I think, for a stream is solid. It's not reference. I mean, you of all people, and DJ, and those listening who've been listening for a while will know how I get very excited about certain Disney Plus release, things like Multiverse of Madness and Patrick Stewart and all that, and things like Quantumania and movies like that I actually thought the Disney Plus video was really nice. This is solid, but you can tell it's streamed there because there's so much detail in the image. It is a little soft here and there. You can see some issues here and there. So it's very good, but it's not reference. It's not as good as those others, which is fine because I think the disc will fix it. But it's still very good. And then the audio. Now, Shane was saying that there was very little in the overheads, and that's what was kind of irked him about it. And the same is largely true for this. Now, bearing in mind he's seen the Kaleidoscape version, though this isn't going to hold a candle to that, but it's largely true. But there are, and I was literally, I think because of what Shane had said, I was particularly listening out for the overheads. And there are a couple of occasions, you can see, in fact, from that picture, the tribe to which our hero belongs is a tribe of eagle rearing tribe. Okay, so they basically rear eagles, they train eagles, they use them to hunt. And there's a bit near the beginning where you've got the main character's father who's up in a sort of loft area, and there are eagles in there and they're flying around, and as they fly they go over the top of the screen. You could hear them in the overheads. They flap sort of around you and over your shoulders and that sort of stuff, and you can hear them cawing and calling and that's in the overheads. And you can also hear, as time goes on, there's wind you can hear, and there's kind of rain, that sort of stuff. So there is overhead engagement, but I agree with Shane. It's not enveloping. It's not all, it's not constant. It's certainly not like a movie we're going to talk about later. It's good, but it's not reference, and it's not going to blow you away. And I'm bearing in mind, again, it's just the stream. The other three are certainly the second and the third. So that's Dawn of, and then War of the Planet of the Apes, the last two of the previous trilogy. Those are reference at times. They look and sound stunning on disc. And so if the disc of this is not that way, and it doesn't look like it is going to be, that will be a shame. But it still should not put you off the quality of the movie. And it's not a bad home theater experience. It's just perhaps not as good as those of us who are fans of these movies had expected. But it's still very good. And the movie really should be seen. If you can see it, but only after the other 3D.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we got some comments in the chat here that I'll reference quickly about the HD on your graphic. It says HD and Dolby Vision, but
that's because it's from the iPad.
Correct. And they're clearing that up in the chat as well. And it's like sometimes it's you don't have to necessarily go by that, but even HD and Dolby Vision, you still could do HD with Dolby Vision. It'd be fine because it's HD is the 1080. It's like 4K is, you can have HDR without having 4K. You don't have to. And as a matter of fact, if you have a television or a display that's anything below 70 inches, you're not telling you can't tell the difference between 4K and 1080 anyways. So it's the HDR is where it's at anyway. So regardless.
Yeah, quite. But as I say, that's a screenshot from the iPad. That's why it says that. But rest assured, it was 4K, HDR, Dolby Atmos, the full shebang. So I would not watch this movie any other way because I.
But yours was in Atmos too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So because they're also saying it says 5.1, and it's like, yep, okay, all right.
iPad.
So maybe this wasn't the best graphic you had because everybody's looking at the graphic and not listening to us. And it's like, Atmos, and because you said that at the beginning, so it's not to pick on anybody saying this stuff, and that's why I'm not calling out any names. But But Nathan had a great question Did you see that starred this one?
Yeah,
Nathan had a
yeah,
great
I
question.
did. Yeah, no is the answer.
Not yet. Okay.
No, the installers are messing me around a bit, and in fact, each when I get back from the holiday that we've spoken about, I might tap you up to give me the details of Ben Goff, so I can
Oh, okay.
see some other ones because these guys are messing me around a bit.
Oh,
Yeah,
yep.
so
Okay.
we'll see how we go with that. But yeah, so not yet. The second sub is still not fixed. However, I've become a bit more used to having the one sub than the
Right.
other, and it is only about now. That does not mean I'm not going to have it fixed. I assure you, I am. But
Oh, yeah.
it's just about the evenness of the bass. It hasn't removed the bass by any
Correct.
stretch. And again, we'll talk about more in a bit later on about something that really thundered,
Yeah.
Thunder Road, as it might, but it certainly has a. So yeah, it's just about the evenness of the bass. It hasn't removed it, so I'm not, I mean, I'm not going on about bass as much as I normally do because I'm mindful of the second sub. But yeah, so I will be getting that sorted as soon as I am back from a fairly expensive holiday.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
I
But
know.
there we go. So there it is. So yeah, so that's still an issue, but not be all end all. Luckily,
Right.
I'm still able to see some very cool stuff and have. So yeah, recommend this. But as I say, Deej, only for you when you've seen the other three.
All right. All righty. Now, what do we want to do next? Let me do actually going right from that. Let's do this one here. Where did it go? There we go. So this dropped today. We'll pull this up to the stage. So on Kaleidoscape today, Twisters dropped. I didn't even have time to think about the timeline or anything like that, but I had a chance to take this in today. Most of it, I've probably about half hour, 20 minutes left that I haven't seen, but I got enough that I can talk about it to say that everything. Now, the other thing is another movie we talked about that we're going to talk about later. I did finish this morning right before this. Okay. So this is interesting that you said this, I wouldn't consider reference. Okay.
Oh.
Only because and this is where I think it's interesting to have this conversation in that the picture is amazing. Remember when I saw the movie in the theater and what I said is I had just seen Twister and I was like, wow, one of the things that Shane didn't mention when we were talking about it is the, how great the HDR was on the new Twister, right? On the new version, and almost to the point that I said Twister could be movie of the year because, as we talked about, John was in the chat at the time. It's a new master of audio. It's a new master of sound. Does that picture? Does it make it a fresh new movie for us because they redid so much stuff? And the HDR on, I had commented how great the HDR was, where you could tell like the dark skies and this, whereas the original. The German version in the 1080p version, everything was bright, right? So like remember I showed you the picture of the light bar and the headlights and everything and how dark that picture looked. And you didn't get that in the 1080p version. Well, when I'd seen Twisters in the theater, they didn't say it did the same thing in the theater. It flattened it out. Everything was bright in the theater. And I was like, oh, maybe the 4K version at home will be better. And it is. The HDR is so much better. It's so much better that it's like amazing. It looks just like, almost like the original, like Twister. Okay. But the problem with it is the sound, it's the volume. I felt like the volume wasn't the same as what it was in another movie I'd watched earlier. So, if you jump from one movie to another, maybe, or even soundtrack or music, sometimes but it doesn't mean it's not fun. It doesn't mean it's not good. It just didn't feel as loud. It was very dynamic, a lot of stuff going on, like the opening scene. There was stuff here that I didn't hear in the theater. It just didn't play as loud. The volume wasn't as, and we like that. So I'm kind of torn, it's like, because maybe if I hadn't just come from another movie where I felt like the volume was louder, maybe I wouldn't feel this way. Maybe I'd be like, that was amazing, you know? So what do you think of all of that?
Well, but there's no doubt that because you're comparing apples and oranges, aren't you? Because you're talking about different movies, different sound design, different intention from scene to scene. You can't really compare them directly because of that issue. But it's interesting. And what you do though, don't you, is give it a couple of days and then give it another watch and see if coming in fresh to it, you find it more engaging and more enveloping. That's one of it. Although you, Deej, of course, know your theatre. Of course you do. You know, you've seen enough movies in there to know what really good home theatre experience is. And so, having said, maybe give it a couple of days and rewatch it and see if anybody knows what it should be like. It's you. And so, you know, maybe that won't work, but you know, it's worth a try just as an interesting experiment, if nothing else.
Well, I know, like, if I come down first, when I come down, not if, when I come down first thing in the morning after getting out of bed, things, reference to me sounds louder, right? Because you haven't heard anything. You're like, boom, and then you've got to get it. You've got to, like,
dial in,
adjust to it, right? Going from streaming stuff to all of a sudden I've said that in the past, watch a ton of streaming content, like weeks long, without touching the Kaleidoscape, and then you go and put on it, and you're like, there it is. That's what top quality is, right? So you can't help but compare and contrast just by that. But this is that's just not to say that like this movie doesn't have really good bass, doesn't have great surround sound, it doesn't have overheads. It does. And like I said, the picture is awesome. Okay, I think so much better than what I experienced in the theater. The sound, I feel like you're going to say it was awesome. Now, I didn't go back to Twister. I should do that. I haven't had a chance. I mean, literally just dropped today. But I did in the middle of it go to another one we'll talk in a little bit, and that volume is louder. So it was just, I don't know. It's not, and Paul and I have talked about it when we did our like reference level, what it is. And it's not necessarily always about volume. It's dynamic range can be achieved regardless of like the peak volume. So it's all there. It just didn't, I don't know. I feel bad saying that, but that's how I felt today.
But the thing is, you see, I mean, I think because we talked at length previously about IMAX and IMAX, some theaters, not all of them, we're not, I'm not criticizing IMAX as a company, but some theaters, for some reason, seem to have equated quality with volume.
Yeah, too much.
So if I play it loud, it's great. And that's not it. I mean, some of the best, and we're going to talk about a couple of these when we talk about this other film in a minute. Yeah. Some of the best and most evocative sound, not always, but some, is where there's the absence of sound, where sound goes away. And so, this, I'm going to put a pot on your head and bang it with a metal pipe for 2 hours is not quality audio. That does not equal awesome. It, as you say, dynamic range, the way in which sound is used and presented is what makes good audio. Not from what little I know about it, rather than just blasting in your ear for 2 hours. I mean, I'm very curious to see this. I mean, I enjoyed it in theaters. I did think it was really good. I mean, we still don't have the Twister 4K disc over here yet. As I said, I haven't imported it. It's out October, I think. Jordan said. So I'll get it then, and it comes out within a couple of weeks with Twisters. It might even come as a 2-pack. I don't know.
Yeah, I bet.
And then I'll get to directly contrast it one after the other. So yeah, we'll see. But that is that's a little bit sobering.
It is.
Expectations adjusted downwards.
Yeah, and I hate to do that because I hate people. Oh, then I won't buy it or I won't do that. But I'm like, if you like the first one or you like this movie, I think you should get it. I think it's a good home theater experience, and I really enjoyed the movie. That's why I was like, I bought it as soon as, actually, I pre-bought it. So that's how I found out it was out today. It's like, I get up in the morning on Tuesday. I don't know why I do this. It's so dumb because I get up on Tuesdays and I check Kaleidoscape right away. but they're West Coast time, so their web and everything hasn't updated.
Yeah.
And I always check it anyways, and then I'll go and then I go to my emails, right? My morning emails. This is what I'm doing when I'm getting up. Check my emails for work and blah blah blah, everything in the show. But I'll check that, and I'll see my email. Oh, you downloaded Twisters last night. I did. Okay. And I look, yeah, I did. I have it, and it's not even on their website that it's available yet. It just drops, and there was no warning. I didn't know, and I'm like, all right, that's how I find out. And I'd have watched it before they even announced. Then I get later an email from them, buy Twisters. Like, I already did.
Yeah, stop. They know you too well, Deej.
Yeah, buy it again.
Yeah.
So,
would you like a blood shot while you're at it?
Yeah, I loved the movie when I saw it in the theater, and I want to have it at home, and I'm glad I do. I think I need to take some time from it and then jump back to it and be like, all right, yeah, it's not as dramatic a drop as I think it is, but I even hate you. See how I hate negativity? I hate talking like this.
Well, it is if you suspect that maybe it's a perception issue.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. If you knew in your heart of hearts, you knew for sure, no, it's just not as good as XYZ, then I get, oh, sorry, Z, narrator.
Yeah.
If it, so if you suspect that it's a perception issue or that it might be, then I get why you'd be kicking yourself. You're thinking, oh no, is it me?
Yeah.
But if so that's perfectly understandable why you'd feel uncomfortable with that. So you give it a go, you watch it in a couple of weeks and then report back.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, what is it? Ragnarok. I have no qualms with that. I'm like, I wish that had a better soundtrack. It's like, I have no qualms. I'm like, that's just flat. I'm like, I've tried everything. And, oh, well. But yeah, so maybe you're right. So, all right.
Okay.
When the disc comes out, we'll discuss it again when you
yeah.
So there you go. All right, what else do we got here from you?
Spin the dial.
Spin the
There's
dial.
one that's been there a couple of weeks, the animated one at the top there next to
okay, this one.
Yeah. We went for that for a little while. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we haven't done this one.
Let's hit this one.
Okay, so this one then is a slightly better shot, I think, even if it is at a bit of a Dutch angle. It is the
But I like that for composition. That's nice.
Well,
sometimes you do angle on purpose so that you get so it seems more real. It's like even if it's off angle, stuff like that, make it a little trapezoidish.
I will take a compliment from an artist such as yourself, Deej. That's fine. Works for me. Like it. All righty. So now this is Rango in 4K UHD disc, DTS HD 5.1 master audio. As I'm often want to ask, Deej, have you seen Rango?
No. Have not seen this.
Okay. Now, you would not be alone in that situation because this is a film that made a fatal error. And it's an error that a number of movies have made, especially movies like this, because this movie did not do well at the box office. And in fact, died a death at the box office, hence why there's not been any more. And that is this. It's an animated movie that is too scary for kids, but not engaging or intriguing enough as a premise for adults. So it falls between two stools, and no one went to see it in the cinema because of it. So you have kids who can't take the kids, it'll freak them right out. Adults go, well, I'm not going because it's a kid's film. Why would I want to see that? And yet I would say, and I think there's some other people in the chat that would agree with me here, that this film is, if not just for a design perspective, but as a movie itself, pretty close to a masterpiece.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't say that lightly. Yeah, it's
so we
directed
got
by
Van Gool saying Rango 4K is great. Love this movie.
Yeah. So and I think Jordan loves it as well. I think from conversations we've had about it when it came out. So it's a movie about Rango, who is a chameleon. You can see him there. It's digital animation. It's not obviously cell stuff. Finds himself in a Western town. Long story. All right. Finds himself in a Western town having to try and save the Western populace of this town from ne'er-do-wells. And it's a very cliched story. I get that. But the design, the execution of this film is fantastic. And whatever else you might think of the story is rote, it is trite, it's been done a million times. But the way this is presented, the way in which it's done is spectacular. And it has never looked I mean, I can't say it hasn't sounded because it's the same DTS HD track as the Blu-ray, but it certainly has never looked better than this. And the detail and the quality of the animation is enhanced no end by the 4K disc. It's a Paramount disc. We've said before about how their backcat discs really can increase the quality of the movies. And in this case, it does it. The detail is ridiculous. And on a sound design where you've got all these Western animals, from the West and all these kind of dusty locales, all of the detail, the light that sort of shines in through these kind of saloons where you've got these how would you call it, sort of villainous characters lurking in the shadows. And on DVD and Blu-ray, and I've seen it on both, you can't see what's going on in the shadows. But on the 4K disc with the HDR, you can see characters in those shadows and what they're up to. And because the character design is so intricate on this, you can see these things that you've never seen before. And that is fantastic, especially for someone who has seen it many times that I have. So that's great and, really cool. Now, the audio is fantastic as well. Upmixed to Neural X. This will be my first time watching it in Neural X. And I've got a bit of a timestamp, Deej. Shock horror.
What? All right,
I know.
you're stealing my thunder. I know I haven't done one in a while, but
thunder stolen.
There we go. Steal it,
Yeah.
take it. We need it.
Done. So at about 119, 120, okay, a character is introduced that is a rattlesnake. Okay, I won't tell any more than that, but it's a character's a rattlesnake, right? They wear clothing, as you can see there, right?
Yeah.
And what you get, and if you watch nothing else, Deej, if you can get hold of a version of this, if you watch no other part of this, and again, if what I'm saying about this movie doesn't entice those listening or watching, if nothing else, if you get chance, watch this sequence where they introduce this character, because what happens in Neural X is the character comes from behind when he's introduced, moves forward. Good man, Deej, you're gonna love this. I really think, again, from an aesthetic view, if nothing else, but this particular audio bit as well. So he comes from behind, and as he comes forward, the coils and, of course, the rattle move around the screen as if you have just floated through the snake. So you get it from behind as it comes across the screen, and you can hear the coils slithering around the room as it comes forward, and the rattle goes with it down the side wall. And it's such a cool effect, and it does it a few times, because once he's introduced, he's there a bit, and he does it again and again. And every time you will find yourself, if you're like me, just looking around the room like this. Oh my God. It's really cool. And bearing in mind, it's only a 5.1 soundtrack, but it's upmixed to Neural X.
Right.
It floats in exactly, sorry, sounds a bit like it there, wasn't it? It floats. It floats down here. You'll float too. And so these coils go right around, and the movement over the rocks, the scales moving over the rocks of this, and he's a giant rattlesnake. It's big because obviously the main character is small. It feels and sounds awesome, and it's a highlight of the movie. As much as I'd like all the film, it's a real highlight. And there are big action sequences. There are some really good things in this. This is the best presentation of this movie by a country mile. It's awesome, and I was very, very, very pleased with this. And I mean, I can't recommend this enough. And again, if you haven't seen it, you are in for a treat, because what a way to see it for the first time like this. Oh, the comedian, by the way, it's directed by Gore Verbinski. The comedian Rango is voiced by Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
So of course they've done obviously Pirates of the Caribbean, and so you get, and he's very funny in this, and the writing in it is very well done. Deej, top of the list. I mean, I know that list is getting longer, but I genuinely, I would be fascinated to hear what you make of this. If you're not swept up in the story, and I think you probably would be, but if you're not, just from a design point of view and from a technical and aesthetic point of view, this will, I suspect, blow your mind. And you'll find yourself pausing the movie to look at the detail levels on these characters. It was all done by ILM. The animation on it is ILM, which of course they don't normally do animated movies, but ILM did this. and you can see it. Someone here went to town on this, and it's really fantastic. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. Yeah,
Jordan saying in
it's
the
extended
chat,
cut. Okay.
extra
Yeah.
info to know for the Rango 4K release is that it is the extended cut. So
Yeah,
cool.
it's really good. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I really like this film. It is, I think, not far off a masterpiece, if nothing else, from a design perspective. So yeah, really good.
Yeah, Fred
That's on
215
Netflix.
is saying it's
Okay.
on Netflix as well. So if you
Yeah,
just want
is that 4K, Fred? Do you know? Is that or is it HD? Because it could be either. Because this is clearly a new master. I mean, they've done some work on this.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to know that. But yeah, very good and really recommended. So yeah, Deej, when you've seen it, let me know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
I wonder if
absolutely.
John's seen it. I wonder if John has seen it. I
I
don't
feel
know.
like he has. I feel like
It's
he
the kind of
mentioned
film
it
he would have
before.
seen,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, I feel like he
Yeah.
has. I really do. I feel like he mentioned it at some point too.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let's see. All right.
Hmm.
This one. You ready to get to this one here?
What have we got? I can't quite see what it is.
Yeah.
That's
All
okay.
right.
I'm gonna check it up.
Let's
Yeah,
get
do it.
to it. Let's get to it. There it is. All right. So this dropped last week. I think Tuesday of last week. I noticed. House of the Dragon season 2 dropped on Kaleidoscape as well, and the final episode just dropped Sunday night, I believe it was. Episode 8 dropped the other night. So I was able to take in exactly I was up to episode 6. Okay. So what I did is, instead of just going to 7 so that I could compare it, I watched episode 6 again. And remember, last week I mentioned I think it was last week I mentioned in the show that scene that timestamp I had given you about what was going on at the table and stuff. And before we get to that, that's on the sound. So before we get to that, let's talk about the picture. And that I had mentioned before how HBO had done a great job with with their HDR, with their streaming HDR, how much better it was, how it looked like they were taking notes from Netflix and Apple TV Plus on how they do their HDR. And I was wondering how much better could this be when we get to the physical version. And I was excited to get it. I was checking daily because I didn't know this didn't typically drop, I think, last time on a Tuesday or whatever. So I was very excited to get this earlier in the season, but we got it now. It's like 3D. I'm like watching this. It's like the contrast, like the darks to the brights, the everything. There's so many. You know what this entire Game of Thrones world is like. It's you go inside a castle or something. It's dark. It's only lit by torches or whatever the window is. So I mean, the stream looks really good this season, but it's so rich. The colors and the costumes, the dragons. There was one scene in this where the dragon is up on a hill looking down. And I didn't notice this when I saw it on the stream, but they blur the distance out is like blurred a bit. And then they bring it into focus all while leaving the dragon in focus. Right. So they didn't do the flip back and forth. And it was just the detail in the dragon that's on the left side of your screen looking down the hill. It was just gorgeous. And then some of the inside shots where the light's coming through the window, so you see that atmospheric look, like whether it's smoke or haze or whatever you want to call it. It was just awesome, because you have such a gradation between the light coming through the window highlighting some of that haze, but then some of the dark areas have that haze in it, so it's not as rich of a black, but then something in the foreground, black, and you're just like, oh. And then they go to a close-up on a character, and the detail, like I said, in the costume, in their faces, in the crown, or whatever the hell they have on their head at the time, right? All of this stuff, then the background is maybe not as black because you have some of that haze. There's so much depth within the picture now that just wasn't there. And the stream is awesome, but there's just so much more when you see it in the physical release. And I know you're waiting for that. You're not even taking in anything.
No,
Now,
we're rewatching the season 1 on 4K disc and loving that. So yeah, gonna wait for this until November.
Yeah, sorry, but the sound on it is it's in a word, incredible. It is dynamic. It is like everything you would want. I mean, borderline reference. I haven't watched the entire season this way, but it's reference quality stuff. Now, let's go to that scene that I mentioned last week, because it's the same episode, and that scene around the table where I said you could hear the atmosphere around the room. And then when they put that ball down, it goes away. And then there was a bass hum, like a, and all, like, to set that tone. More dramatic this time. Even more. I thought it was awesome on the stream. But what ended up happening is that, so the only way I can compare it is, so you know at the beginning of Avengers, right? And if you watch Avengers on the stream, or watch Avengers, and they have, like, Samuel Jackson lands in the helicopter, he gets out, he goes up to Coulson, and he's like, you know, whatever, and what's her name is there, and they're walking through, and they're going over what they're about to do, right? In the background, you can hear a siren going, or an alarm. On the stream, in a room where you just have a sound bar or your TV, that is very, very pronounced. Okay, it's like you can hear them talking, but it's that alarm, right? When you go into your room and you watch it on physical media, you hear them talking, and that alarm is like off to the side going, because it's not right in their ear. Right?
Yeah.
But when you watch it on a regular, like when you watch it on your regular television or on a single channel, it can't place it anywhere else. So it just puts it right there with everything else. Okay. Now, I know I watched the stream of House of the Dragon season 2 in my theater, right? But it's the stream. So it doesn't get the little nuances that maybe that they wanted to put forth. When you watch it here, that scene, when the sound from around, all the ambient sound just drops and goes away, but that bass hum doesn't come in as heavy right away. It gradually ramps up until the scene changes and you go right to the character they want to show you. And then it goes, and you're like, oh, and it's showing you her thinking, right? So it was more dramatic, more dynamic, because they were able to do that. And then that goes throughout the entire episode. Like, you know, you louder bangs and whatever, and then quieter scenes, because we talk about black levels. Black is black on every display you've ever had. It can't get darker. The only way they make it darker is by making certain things look brighter. And that's that HDR and that contrast. Just like you can't get quieter in your room. Your noise floor is your noise floor. That's it. On every piece of content, that's as quiet as it can get. But how do they manipulate your senses? How do they manipulate you to make you think something feels quieter or louder? They'll set you up. Just like I said, when I come down in the morning after having been asleep all night, and you go in your room and you're like, oh my God, that's loud. It's no louder than it was when I went to bed. But you're not adjust to it. They do the same thing in movies. That's sound design. That's manipulating you on purpose to get you to. They do it with comedy, and they'll bring you in comedy, and then they'll, bam, they do it on purpose, and then make you feel sad right after, and that doubles the impact because you came from so high, now you're down so low. If they never brought you up, it's not as big of a drop. You don't feel that dramatic effect, you know, and that's what you get out of this on physical media and the streaming of between this and the physical and the streaming of the. And I'm just so excited now to get to the next episode, which I haven't seen yet, episode 7. So
I mean, and it's only 8 episodes. Is that right? Not 10?
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think so.
8
I
isn't
read
the
somewhere
final
it's
one.
only 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
I think
right.
8 is. I think 8's it. Yeah, I think so. I read somewhere that you know, people have been moaning about it, but I'm really looking forward to it. And so far, spoiler free as well. So I mean, I am loving going back through series 1. You know, with a bit of time and not having to worry about, right, who's that again, and who did that? Because of course you know where it's going, so you can just wallow in the acting and the sound design and the dialogue and it's so much more fun the second time. I'm really enjoying it, so I can't wait for this, but I am going to have to, otherwise you would have had me hit my cha-ching button, Deej, but unfortunately it's not out till November.
Yeah.
So it'll just be a really slow cha-ching.
Jordan and VJ are saying in the chat that it's 8 episodes.
Yeah,
so it's done. It should be done. So
yeah. Yeah, very cool. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and I know there are people online moaning about it, and because there always are. But I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I can't wait for you to see it, and it's yeah, we'll talk more about it then because I'm going to finish it here. But it's just another example of I don't think streaming has a long way to go, but I just think it's going to take them a long time to get there. Streaming's really, really good, but and I think one of the reasons is why would they spend the money to make it that much better when we have physical, right? Like how much better? Because the people don't care.
Exactly that, and the vast majority don't care. So that's the thing. There's not that impetus to make it that much better because your average person can't tell the difference anyway. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. You ready for you want to do this one next?
Oh, as long as you're prepared for this.
I am. Okay. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. What did you call it? 720?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, this is the often discussed Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, which had previously on the Brightside Home Theatre podcast. I saw this in theaters a number of months ago when it came out, opening weekend, I think, and I didn't like it. And I thought it was too different to Fury Road. I thought it was baggy, boring, and I thought that Chris Hemsworth's Dementus was ludicrous and over the top. And so I've been patiently waiting for the disc, and I had said then and that when it came out, I'd pick it up and that I would give it another go and reappraise it. So luckily for me, the disc arrived early on Saturday. It wasn't due out here until Monday, but I got hold of it early just because of the vagaries of the postal system, and I watched it Saturday evening. I was really disappointed with it, is what I'd say if I wasn't telling the truth. I've just thought Jordan are just, catching his throat. Right.
Yeah. Oh, God.
This was incredible. I cannot think of a 4K disc in my 1,000 plus 4K disc collection or thereabouts that is as big a difference between not just the video and the audio, but in terms of the sheer change in terms of my view of the movie. Now, it is not uncommon, as we all know, for me to see a film in the theaters, not enjoy it that much, and see it at home and enjoy it more. But this is like going from a 2 out of 5 to a 6 out of 5. It is a complete change. So the movie just was completely different for me. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll go the other way around to how I normally do it. So video wise, I'll because this enhanced my experience of it. So I've got to do video and audio. The video on this is stunning, absolutely stunning. The second it started, even with the Warner's logo and the kind of the rusty logo, but then when it cuts to the forest sort of area, just my jaw hit the floor, and it goes on and on and on, and it gets, the detail levels are ridiculously sharp. The colors are a thing of utter beauty. And and again, funny enough, Deej, you said earlier, it's like 3D. That's exactly what this movie is like on disc. It is three-dimensional from minute one to the very, very end. And I
Yeah.
was blown away by how it looked. And then we get the audio. And the audio is transformative. And I think this is reference Atmos. I think the video is as well. Actually, if we're going that way, the video and the audio, I think, are reference on this. I cannot envisage it being better. Right from the off. I mean, again, I'll just kind of talk generally, but when we first are exposed to the Thunder Bike and the guttural kind of, throaty, bassy, idling sound of that bike reminded me of the Batmobile, actually, in Batman, the Batman.
Yeah.
In the Batman, it's made a feature of, whereas I think in this it's a little bit throwaway, but in a great way. It's a little understated, but ever so cool. So we get the Thunder Bike, which sounds amazing. You get a chase sequence at the beginning where time and again motorbikes, thunderous, strong, go up the walls of your screen. So you get two of them come past the listener, and so they go up the wall of the screen, and then it cuts to the reverse angle and they go down the walls of the screen, and it happens again and again in this chase sequence. And I was just like, this is amazing. And it goes on, and there are moments where there are big action sequences. And I mean, Shane Lee talks about overhead usage in movies. Well, this film takes it to a new level. I mean, there are sequences, it's in the trailer, where someone is underneath a truck holding on, and there's voices coming from up in the cab, and they are right above your head. So you've got audio in the overheads, which is relatively unusual, and extended lines of dialogue. There's conversations going between someone down here and people in the overheads. It just was amazing, and it goes on and on and on like that. It just blew my mind. And again, as something that I don't often do, I stopped about 10 minutes in and put a tweet out to let people know how excited I was about what I was watching. And I put that tweet up, and because it completely, this disc utterly changed my view of the film. I could not be more different about this. I loved this film the second time round because it looked amazing, it sounded amazing, and the story then makes sense second time round to me. And because of how good it looks and how three-dimensional the world is, you feel yourself being pulled into that world, and everything is better because of it. And even Chris Hemsworth wasn't annoying me in this time round, because I realized the tragedy of his story arc much more this time than I got before, because I was more invested in it because of how good it looked and sounded. The delivery system enhanced the experience, Teach. Pretty sure I've read that somewhere. And so, and heard it once or twice.
Lucy.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yes, exactly that. Yeah. Although the scale of this now, which
it's much bigger than Lucy.
It is. Although Lucy, I suppose, becomes intergalactic by the end, but anyway, this is because she becomes everything, doesn't she? By the end, But this, whereas in this, it's the scale of this is brought to life by the 4K audio and video. So what perturbed me about it the first time round, the scale, is what brought me into the movie the second time round in this format. And I will tell you, Deej, this is not just better than the theater that I saw it in, which was not a flea pit by any means. It was a relatively new cinema, honest. It's a relatively, it's not, Dolby, it's not Dolby Cinema, it's not, any of that, but it's a relatively new theater. It's a 4K projector. And the experience of watching this version and the theatrical one, both audio and video, and you're going to think I'm being an idiot when I say this, but I genuinely mean it, would be like watching a DVD and a 4K disc. This experience was transformative. It's just not comparable. It's just not the same. So I put this tweet up, Deej. I don't know if you've got it there. Do you mind just popping that up a minute? Because I just want to, I want to highlight, the one that's got this picture on it, and then the comment above it.
Let me see.
There's a couple there, because I put a picture up of a screen still, but that's okay. One? It's that's the one. That's the one. Because and I don't normally put up my own tweets because I feel like I'm sort of blowing my own trumpet. But what I want to talk about there is this. So I tweeted this up Saturday evening. So I put 10 minutes into Furiosa on 4K UHD disc and whatever my thoughts on the movie itself, because I hadn't got all the way through it at that point. This is leaps and bounds better, picture and sound wise, than my theatrical experience. Right. I'll put the emphasis on than my theatrical experience. Okay. And then, wow. So get this, Deej, right? I then get that one shows you a still. I mean, you can see how three-dimensional that still is, even for off the screen picture. Yeah, exactly. And that's, it looks even better than that when it's being shown. And I mean, obviously it's all compression and everything, isn't it? Now it's compressed and then compressed again. Yeah. But it gives a good idea of the color contrast and the detail levels and the
black levels. Stuff. Yeah. That's how you get that contrast. Look at the black levels and the motorcycles in the foreground. And like I was saying before, and look at how in the motorcycles, as they get further away, you see the blacks get less and less deep. And that's how you create that 3D look, right? And never mind, look at the sky and the gradation of the sky from the blue at the top to the white in the background, how the skyline is a lighter blue. And the same, if you look at the sand, the orange, and how that fades to the skyline. These are all things that happen in nature. They happen in real life, but it's harder to capture and it's hard to duplicate without HDR. You can, and it looks good, but it's even better when you do it with HDR. And and again, this is a crappy version on whatever you're watching on YouTube, on your phone, compressed how many times, but it's a representation of what is going on. Never mind what you actually see in person. So it's a great example, Steve. Whoops.
Yeah. Well, I could have taken a screenshot of any part of that film and put that up, but the tweet. Right. So this tweet anyway. So I said about that it was way better than my theatrical experience, and I had people, I swear to you, Deej, that were like, "No, it's not."
Okay.
I was like, "How do you know? Were you there?"
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a number of people genuinely say to me, "No way." And so I was like, okay. Now as I am wont to do, Deej, I reached across for my reply button, and luckily the block button was closer. So anyway, I didn't respond to those. And then you get, and I had someone say, and I kid you not, on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, theatrical exhibition will always beat home cinema.
Yeah.
Didn't reply to him either. Although I probably should have just sent him a link to this show. But anyway, so this is a fantastic experience, and I loved it. I'm going to watch this disc over and over again, and this is demo material from the beginning to the end. You can pick any scene in this, just let that play, and people's jaw will hit the floor. They will love this. So and yet again, I know Jordan's mentioned it. We did talk about it on Twitter. There are people who are apparently criticizing it and saying, it doesn't. They don't think it's right. They don't think the image quality is not good. I had someone who very nicely on Twitter said he'd read an analysis of it saying that Warner should be ashamed of themselves at the quality of this disc. I mean. Which leads me briefly, Deej, to, have you seen the James Cameron comments today?
No, no. You mentioned that earlier, and I couldn't wait to hear about it. We didn't have time to chat before the show. What happened?
Yeah, I've got it here. Let me read this to you. This is a quote. It's only short. All right. This is what he says. Okay. And this is apt. This is why I've got it here. It's apt for people saying about this, about True Lies, The Abyss, and Aliens. And this is what James Cameron said. It was an interview on THR over the weekend. He says this: when people start reviewing your grain structure, they need to move out of mom's basement and meet somebody, right? I'm serious. I mean, are you effing kidding me? I've got a great team that does the transfers. I do all the color and density work. I look at every shot, every frame, and then the final transfer is done by a guy who's been with me for years. All the Avatar films are done that way. Everything is done that way. Get a life, people. Seriously.
Well, you know, and I've said it before. I'm glad he came out and said that, put his name on everything, because people are saying, like, they're getting all mad, like, oh, he didn't do this, he would never do this, and it'd be like, whatever you see there, okay, if it's not what the artist wanted, then that's shame on them, right? Like, if you put it in somebody else's hands and let something else out that isn't what you wanted, that's on you as the artist, right? And you can't complain because you put it in their hands. Even if you said, like, imagine if he came out and went, I'm sorry, I gave it to the wrong person. No, you didn't have to put it out, right? What are you doing? Then I would say, then that's a money grab. You put out crap for the money. That is the definition of a money grab. Putting something out multiple times in multiple editions, that's not a money grab. That's how you make money. That's not called a money grab. That's called marketing. That's how you make money. He didn't deceive you. He didn't do anything. And now for him to come out and put his name on it, I mean, basically saying, go bitch about the paint, the brush strokes on a Van Gogh, because don't tell me you don't like what I did when I did it. So shut the F up. You don't like it, don't buy it. Right? But it's my work. It's what I did. This is how I wanted it to look. Go make your own crap and then come back to me. And this is one of the biggest artists in the world, right? Probably made more money than any other artist in the world, right?
Oh, yeah.
Really. And it's Tom Cruise, as an actor, blah, 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 whatever we're talking about. This guy knows his stuff, and this is what he wants to do. And it's for him to do that. I love it. I wish I'd seen it before now, but you got me all fired up, Steve. I love
me
it
too.
because it's what I've been saying. It's like, it's what artists do. You don't like it, too bad. Just like, George Lucas be like, oh, I don't like the new special editions. Too bad. It's my movie. Go make your own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But we keep buying them.
It's just this kind. Yeah. Well, the tweet that I put out, the first one, it got nearly 300 likes. I mean, it kind of went a little mini viral, and loads of replies. And again, I had a long chat to someone who's a nice guy who writes for Blu-ray.com actually, and we're now following one another. He's a nice chap, and he was saying how, and I was saying to him that I can't understand why someone who would profess to love this stuff, and people do, movies generally, would spend all their time, I mean, just denigrating it, just criticizing it, because it just seems it's an anathema to me. I don't understand how you profess to love something, but all you want to do is bitch about it and criticize it. And if something was bad, I could at least understand it. But I've seen The Abyss 4K. I've seen Aliens 4K. I've certainly seen this Furiosa. And to say that the studios have got it wrong, that the directors got it wrong, that they should be, again, the quote was, ashamed of themselves, is nonsense. I'm thinking of stronger words. I'm not using them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just ridiculous. And again, Deej, we talked about the difference between subjective and objective last week. Objectively, that's wrong.
Yeah,
because you can't look at this and go, oh, it's not right. Oh, it doesn't sound good, because it does. And if it doesn't sound or look good to you, it's your system. Because it just, so and if it is that, you can't then complain and blame the director or the studio if you're not getting the thing at home because of whatever the system is you've got. I mean, do you want, how much do you want to bet these people don't have calibrated screens, or they're watching, fancy watching on an iPad,
but
something like
you
that.
And I have talked about that stuff. We've called out privately. I won't. I'd never call people out, but it's privately. You go, no, and I get their perspective, because you know what, their perspective isn't wrong. It's because that's their perspective. They're seeing it this way, but this is what happens when you see it on an uncalibrated system or a miscalibrated. Like, they think it's right, they just don't have the proper settings. Like, I see it all the time. Like, people talk HDR, they show screenshots, but you can tell that their SDR isn't set up to show you SDR. It's they're showing you the same image through the same settings, and your HDR SDR compare. You need two different settings for SDR and HDR. Yeah. And they're not doing it. It's like, and that's the shots they're giving the public, and then they're going, this is horrible. And then even with the grain and stuff like that, it's just so I don't know. And it's like, wow, you got me totally fired up on this. It's like,
Well,
because
yeah.
it fires me up because I hate to say I told you so. It's one of those things because I know as an artist, if I do something and somebody doesn't like it, that's where you get artists will be like, that's the definition of a starving artist. Like, F you, I'm going to do it my way, whether you like it or not. People don't understand. I've said it so many times. You get an idea, you got to get it out, regardless of what happens and what people do. And I get in trouble for that all the time because I'm like, right now, I got to get these words out of my head. And you're like, otherwise, I'm just going to go into my theater and yell at myself because this stuff, because people never look at it through the other person's perspective. They never look at the artist like, oh, well, why can't they do this? Or the business or anything. Why don't they do this for me? Put yourself in their shoes, would you? You know, does it make business sense? Are you an artist? Why is he doing it? I don't know, but he wants to, and you bought it. What do you want me to say? You know, thanks.
But you know, again, I find it frustrating, and I've had it all weekend with these, you know, like I said, these asinine comments from, you know, people on Twitter just going, the vast majority, by the way, are going, oh my God, it looks amazing. But these 3, 4, 5 people saying, you know, it's rubbish. It's not as good. And you're like, you don't know that. And it's wrong. Because this is like saying a Ferrari is too loud, or it's, you know, it's the wrong shade of red. You know,
gets bad gas mileage.
Yeah, exactly.
No kidding.
Yeah. But it was truly fantastic. I mean, I you know, I love Fury Road. That film is fantastic to me. Probably my film of 2016. But this, I mean, Deej, if you told me a few months ago that I'd be saying this, I would not have believed you. I'd have respected your opinion.
I said, I think I did. I said, I think you'll come around on it. Now, I know we only have 18 minutes left, and I know we'll probably just no. I think we should. I think this discussion is worth it. We have another movie. We'll move that to next week if we have to, because I don't want to short that either. But this, let me ask you this, and I've been dying to since you said the 720 comment and everything. Is it possible? And it goes into what I said earlier about dynamic range. Is it possible that you came in so low on this that the height that you are now at, okay, so like if baseline is 0, okay, so we're starting at 0, right? You walk into every movie at 0, and that's what I say, like these trailers, you walk into a theater, you should be starting at 0, and it's like, what are we going to gauge it on, whether it's out of 10 or 100, whatever, right? So you're coming in at 0, you have no opinion either way. And then all of a sudden, those trailers just keep playing and playing, and you're going down and down and down. You're at a -10 by the time the movie starts. Now, you might have given, if you started at 0, now you come out of that movie going, yeah, it was all right. I give it a 70 out of 100. Well, is that 70 because you had to climb out of the -10? Or is it, you know, if you've been at 0, you might be thinking it's an 80. And then once you're up to 80, your passion's so high, you'll be like, that was the best movie ever. Is it possible that you came into this at like a -20 and now you're at like an 80 and you're like, holy crap, that's 100. That's a big difference. When had you not come into it from such a negative, you might be comparing this to any other 80 or 90 rated movie. You see what I mean? The comparison I'm trying to do. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's that dynamic range that's so important that artists could set you up with, like I said, with sound, with video, with the picture, like a bright screen. They'll hit you with a big bright screen and then they'll bring you into darkness. And now in a dark room, your eyes are still adjusting to your screen. And they do that on purpose for that emotional impact. Is it possible you did that to yourself here?
It is possible. But I don't think it is. I think it's the delivery system enhancing the experience. I think it's the quality of this just transforms it. And I'm not dismissing what you say, Deej, because you know there is definitely some of that to it. But the sheer quality of this is such that I'm not watching the same film I saw in the theaters. I'm not seeing that movie. Right. I am seeing
you're more
this
engaged.
Movie. Right. Well, quite because it looks amazing, sounds amazing, and it just it you feel part of that world. It's
Yeah.
like looking through a window now, not
Yeah.
looking at a blurry, grayed out mess. I mean, I wasn't criticizing the theatrical experience before. I mean, I was saying I didn't like the movie, I didn't like the story. But this creates a world, invites you to step into it because it's like looking through a window for the whole time anyway. And therefore you are that much more engaged. Like you, I mean me, I was that much more engaged in what I was seeing. And therefore, story beats, character arcs, whole scenes, entire sequences now have a dramatic heft that just would pass me by in theaters. And this wasn't when I saw it a midnight showing. I wasn't half asleep when I saw it in theaters, at least not when it began. But this was a very, very, very different experience. It's literally like a different film. And I think I would put this above Fury Road in terms of me liking it. I think I prefer this, even though at the end you do get little snippets of Fury Road, and I could have very easily gone and watched that if I'd had the time, because I still love that film. But this is exceptional work. George Miller, has created something here that I now can see why people were calling it a masterpiece. I think that's right. I think it is. And the disc just takes that and polishes it and presents it to you in a pristine way and says to you, look at what I have created here. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. And you just, it's fantastic. This, for me, if you said choose one, I mean, of course, I would have said Civil War. You asked me Friday night, and I'd have said Civil War. Civil War, that ain't going to be beaten. It's Civil War all day long. Bearing in mind, I still haven't seen Dune 2. I've seen the movie, but I haven't seen the disc. I've just not got around to it. So I would have said Civil War. That's all there is to it. Nothing's going to beat that. That's it. This does.
Yeah.
This beats it. It's got to be. This should be disc of the year for me. It's got to be number one come December. It's got to be. I can't. Well, I can't think of anything else unless Dune 2 really is that great. And like I said, I haven't seen it, and I will before December. It's incredible. It's just not really any other way I can say it. It's stunningly good. And I now know where Shane Lee was coming from, because Shane talked about this one as well.
Yeah.
And you did you say you both did, and
yeah,
I see why.
There's listen to the break in your mind. I see why.
I see why.
I see why. It is, but it's just fun to hear, like the contrast from you, right? Seeing it in the theater, seeing and not being engaged, and how important all of that stuff is to. That's why cinematographers get awards. That's why sound design gets awards. That's all of that stuff. Actually, it doesn't enhance the story. It is part of the story. It's so important to get the full emotional impact. And if you don't get it, you're not getting the full impact of this particular piece of art, this kind of art. If you're just watching these things and you call yourself a cinema buff or something, and you're watching them on a display, a single display with one single speaker, then you're a story buff, really, right? You're not a cinema buff. You're a story buff. You're reading books on television. You're basically reading a book on tape. Is basically what you're doing, right? And like I can't do books on tape. My wife does it, like recordings, because when I read, I want to put the inflection in. I want to use my imagination. I want to picture what these people sound like. I don't want somebody else reading it for me, and then because now I picture, like, if there's dialogue, I'm picturing that person in that dialogue. I want to do that. That's the part of reading a text, or you get to fill in the blanks of the imagination. Okay. When you watch a movie, I want the full experience. I think everybody watching and listening to this show, that's what we want to do. We're trying to get the full experience of this type of art. Otherwise, all you're getting is the story. It really is. And that's all it is.
Well, you might not even be getting that if you're not then engaged, because if you're not dragged into it through how it looks and sounds, you may not even be getting the story. It's like looking at the Mona Lisa but through a postage stamp of the corner, and then trying to get an emotional engagement into what you're looking, because you're only looking at a small piece.
Right.
And so I think it's the same with these. So if you're not getting the sound, you're not getting the video, you're not getting what George Miller and hundreds of other people came together to show you, right? You're not then going to necessarily engage in the story. I mean, and again, I know that from personal experience. It's exactly what happened to me in the theaters, because I was not getting this. So the story was just not engaging me. I wasn't putting along with it. I was bored. I was never bored during this.
Yeah.
You might even say, Deej, this is home cinema.
Yeah. And it's, well, now here's the other one I'm gonna kind of throw back at you is what was the episode of one of the Star Wars series when I was talking about like how the ship was going through space and the sounds going around you, and you're like, if you're paying attention to that, you're not engaged. And here you are going, because of all this, I was so much more engaged. It's like,
yeah,
buddy, I hate to say this is why I love you so much, but it's like, because we can do this. Most people be like, where'd he go? Why'd he hang up on me? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at all that stuff, and you were saying like the story was flat, and I was so engaged because of everything. And it's like, and that's nothing against you. And that's why I can say that, is because that particular whatever series or that particular episode didn't speak to you the way it spoke to me. And that's why people look at stuff like this and they can say, it was flat. I didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. It didn't speak to them, right? It's like you look, it's like in Daredevil, the series, when Wilson Fisk buys that white painting because it just spoke to him, right? And it's like everybody else is like, it's white. Who cares? That's the whole point of it. It's like something speaks to you and you're like, I gotta own it. Why? I don't know. It just speaks to me. It tells me I get something out of it. And other people will call you crazy. Who cares? You know, why, and that's what we get it all the time here. I'll be like, I love that movie. And it's like, oh, it's a quote, guilty pleasure. And then you get other people, I loved it too. And it's like, but they're afraid to say why. It spoke to you for whatever reason, And it's usually something in your past triggers something there. In this here, it's just like, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with hating stuff either. Evil Dead Rise. So,
back to objectively awesome.
Or our other favorite here.
Oh no, come on. Come on. Let's not go nuts.
No, I mean, but again, that is another. You're afraid now to go back to this one.
Oh, PTSD.
Because you're afraid that you're like, I was wrong.
The
delivery system enhanced it.
I have limits, Deej. I have limits.
I know you do.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Just see what Van Gogh's put up there as well that you start. So it says, Steve, does that mean your system's better than the theater you went to? This is why we put the money and effort into good experience in our homes.
Yeah.
Van Gogh, one word answer. Yes.
Well, yeah.
All day. I mean, it is better than the theater, but also, again, this presentation has made it better. I mean, my system's better, but this particular presentation is so good that I think many people whose systems perhaps are not quite to the level of mine would feel that it was better than the theater because of how good it is. I mean, it's just bananas. I mean, this is a must-own disc all day long. You could just have it as a sound demo or a video demo if you like, if you don't like the film. But it's a must-own. And in a just world, this is going to sell. Well, this will propel the box office like the box office didn't, because it didn't really set the box office alight. But hopefully the quality of this will really mean it will have a second life. So it was great. I was so pleased with it. And again, the vast majority of people, I think, on Twitter and all the rest of it, such as they are, 300 of them like the tweet, and only a handful, literally on one hand, I could count the number who were getting sniffy about it. It's very, very cool. And this is what we're here for, this kind of thing and again, I mean, I'm always straight with my views on movies. I'm quite happy to admit when I was wrong. And, I mean, I wasn't wrong at the time from what I had seen.
No, that's your opinion at the time. That's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to change it. Yeah, you're allowed to
Yeah, yeah,
change your opinion. You changed my opinion on Invisible Man.
Mm.
You know, there's been
Yeah.
many movies I've changed my opinion on. It's like the only one I don't think I'll ever change my opinion on is that Judge
Evil Dead
Dredd.
Rise. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or that
That's
one.
right.
Yeah, that one there. Judge Dredd, Evil Dead Rise. I
Yeah.
don't think so on Evil Dead Rise. But Judge Dredd is the only movie I've ever returned.
And just for those that are new to the podcast, we're talking about the Stallone version, not Dredd,
not
the
Dredd.
Carl
That's
Urban
why I
one.
said
That's not
Judge Dredd.
Yeah. And some people they hear Judge Dredd
Yeah.
and they just seem to equate the two. But yeah,
Exactly.
we're talking 1995 Sylvester Stallone, not Dredd with
Yeah.
Carl Urban.
Yeah, it's
so good. I mean, I could gush about this movie all night. I really could. I mean, and we haven't talked scenes. We haven't really talked any detail. I've just given a little bit, but I could do an entire show on this.
Oh yeah,
and just go on this. It's very cool.
Oh yeah.
So there we go.
What about there was a question in the chat earlier?
Ooh.
What's the difference between this and the black and chrome edition? And it's nothing except for the black and chrome is in black and white, and that's why I can't wait to see how that is. I said it before, I wasn't crazy about the black and chrome Fury Road, as it looks great. Don't get me wrong, but we talked about it last week, I think, or a couple weeks ago, when I said Logan in black and white. And I don't know if it was called black and chrome. I think that Logan Noir.
Yeah, it's noir. Yeah,
that one there. And when you listen to some of the special edition stuff or the behind the scenes stuff, they shot that for black and white. So there's a whole different lighting scheme when you're shooting for black and white, because you're trying to create a contrast where they're really. It's harder to do in black and white, where here you get the advantage of color distracts you from contrast. So watching Logan, that is the preferred way, Logan Noir. When I watch that, and you and I differ on this, Steve, is like you said, nope, you like the HDR, 4K HDR version in color. I feel like when I go back to the color after watching all the detail and the depth that you get when you're not distracted by the pretty colors, it looks so great. And then, but on Fury Road, I felt like it wasn't as dramatic a difference. And it's like, it does look great, the black and chrome. But it's not the same. Like going to Psycho is shot in black and white purposefully. That if you look at the special or listen and watch some of the blood that they use in that movie, it's not red. They're using a different color to get a different. Yeah, they're trying to milk. They're trying to get a different feel. Superman, the show. If you saw his costume, it's not the Superman costume. It's not the right colors. If that all of a sudden changed to color, you'd be like, what the heck is he wearing? I forget what the colors are, but it doesn't show up the same. It doesn't show up right. Red, actually, in black and white, shows up closer to black in black and white. So to get that and it's just the properties of the color itself and the way it's hard to describe, but the way it reflects and doesn't and stuff. But yeah, so the way they shot that in Logan is so much. It's literally purposely. I remember this one particular scene, the way, I can't remember what it was, but if you remember, they were staying at the silo in Logan, remember? And there's this one particular scene that they had to use this reflector, like big mirror, to reflect the light in the right way. And I who directed that one?
It was James Mangold.
Okay. And he was saying, he's like, no, we need more, because in black and white, it's going to look like this. And he wanted a higher brightness in the highlights because of the black and white. And that like just so rings to me. And it's like he had that in mind while filming this. And then never mind going like to get Patrick Stewart in the movie. They like, remember the behind the scenes of that?
Careful, Dave, spoilers.
Behind the scenes of that, like he was never in the same place at the same time just because of scheduling. So they had to do all that, but then he's also thinking black and white. It's just crazy how they organize this stuff. So, but yeah, I'll be interested to see how this is in black and chrome.
I must be I mean, I understand and accept that there are different versions of movies. I mean, the one I often go to is The Mist. Frank Darabont's The Mist, and again, we'll get letters, so I won't say anything about The Mist other than
Yeah.
There is a black and white version of that. The 4K disc has got it, and the Blu-ray had it as well. But that's a bit different because that movie is trying to evoke an era. That film's trying to evoke 50s horror movies, so like Them and Day the Earth Stood Still and that kind of stuff. So that uses black and white to try and evoke an era and create an era specific mood rather than change the presentation of the film. And I really like the black and white version of that. I like that kind of that midnight movie kind of stuff. It's kind of cool. But I must admit, I see Jordan in the chat saying about he's really looking forward to seeing the black and chrome edition of this. I love the color in this. It's eye searing. The color is so good and so great. I can't imagine if you take that away, that will then enhance it. I mean, I'll try it. I'll give it a go, but I can't see that I would prefer it more than this. But then again, I didn't think I'd like this when I saw it again. So who am I to say? I'm gonna keep an open mind.
Yeah, it's funny because on Kaleidoscape, I don't even think Logan Noir is this way. It's like you have to buy it separate, black and chrome. It's $35, $34.99 for the black and chrome edition, but you get 4K, SDR, HDR, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, all of that on the Furiosa black and chrome. So that's why I bought it. I'm like, so. It's
well, I'll let you check it out, and then you can tell me what you think of it, and then I'll then decide if I will. But this is so good. I just can't imagine genuinely an experience better than this with this movie. I just can't do it. And Cinema George, well done, whoever created that. He's obviously a clever fellow. It's very cool, very, very cool. Buy this, people. If you're listening and watching, if you're stuck with us this long, if you haven't got it ordered, do yourself a favor and do it, and you will not be sad that you did, unless you're one of these handful of people on Twitter. Otherwise, you'll love it.
Exactly. There you go. All
right.
right. We almost did a whole show on it.
I could go and go on it.
Well, that's the thing. Once we went that far, I was like, there's no sense in stopping now. And I don't want to short the next one that we're going to talk about next week, because that deserves almost as much comment,
Oh, yeah. And there was another one as well that we'll talk about next week, which I had on my little list, which would have brought it down. And we wouldn't want to do that. So we'll keep that for next week.
Yep. Yeah. We might end up at, like, if we keep finding great stuff to talk, movies to talk about, we're like 2 a week. That's all we got time for. Holy crap, we're gonna do an hour on one and an hour on another, and then still be like, we're out of time. It flies by. Holy crap, it's flown by. So all right. But yes, I've got to get back to bed. You've got to get to bed. It's been
not together, just so in case anyone's wondering. We've not got that close just yet.
No. We got a whole pond between us. If it wasn't for that pond, though, Steve.
Hey, hello. You know it.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Oh, God. All right. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Lively as always. Love it. I mean, it's so much fun watching you guys chat away. And not that Steve and I need to be spawned on anymore, but it does. It's awesome. Thank you to everybody that supports the show, whether it's through Patreon or buying merch and flaunting us to everybody and watching people's eyes roll like, home theater, what's that? So, because most of the planet has no idea about us, so, but who cares? We love us. But all right, everybody, have a great week. What do you got to do?
Go push play.
What he said.
That's right.
Hey, Fred.
This has been a Hey Fred production with theme music by Jeff Bernhardt and Throne Vault Productions.